111 years ago, we were selling meat and cheese slices. After you've been at uni for, 4 or 5 years thinking, oh my God, I've got no life experience, I've got no work experience, what am I going to do? Even your kind of, part-time jobs at Macca's or Hungry Jack's, you may think that it's not relevant. It totally is.
Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Now, if you guys are completely new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can keep up to date with all the videos. Now, I've got a really awesome guest here with us today, which is TJ. So one of the very first people I've actually met when I joined IBM. For everyone watching, are you able to give us a quick introduction to what you're doing at the moment at IBM and anything interesting about you?
Absolutely. And thank you for having me. My name's Tejan or TJ for short. And what I do at IBM is campus programs and talent attraction. So it's a little bit of a mix of everything, actually. I do a little bit of recruitment, so hiring grads and interns into our business. I do a little bit of the program side, so looking after our grads and interns once they come into the business, running orientation sessions, that kind of thing. And it also includes the talent attraction side, which is working with universities and societies, going to careers fairs, really trying to bridge that gap, for students leaving university and coming into industry. So that's what I do at the moment, and it is a really fun space to be in.
I think people may get that sort of misconception wrong, right? When it's talent acquisition and just HR in general. Are you able to sort of break that down into, what's a day in the life if you were to go into your role, right? And what would you actually do? Is it heaps of meetings, heaps of walking around, going to universities, etc.?
Yeah, it's so interesting. It's a little bit of a mix of everything because my role is so diverse. I could have some weeks where I, like you said, in back-to-back meetings, I could be interviewing. So we do a lot of our interviews at the moment over a video conferencing platform similar to this. So a lot of talking, a lot of communicating with students, but it could be the flip side as well. I could be out for the whole day at a careers fair, a uni event, talking to people in person, could be on the phone, could be kind of wandering around the office, meeting some of our grads and interns. So I guess it's a lot of talking, a lot of communicating, a lot of meeting with people. For people that are interested in, the HR side of it, that's probably why you get into this kind of space, is because you love working with people.
For everyone watching, right, they might not be very familiar with IBM. Are you able to give a quick overview of, just what is IBM, what sort of company is it, and why you sort of joined IBM, right?
Yeah, great question. So IBM, for anybody that's not familiar, is a global hardware, software, and services company. So it kind of spans pretty much everything within the tech industry. If you're thinking of hardware is in mainframes, if you're thinking of software in different programs, chatbots, and you also include all the services around that. So kind of working directly with clients to help them through whatever the transition or the transformation is. IBM has been around for a very long time. 111 years actually was IBM's birthday a couple of days ago. So through that time, we have transformed quite significantly. I think when we originally started 111 years ago, we were selling meat and cheese slices and things like that, which is, completely different to what we do today. And for those that may be familiar with IBM, you might know IBM from things like the PC, so inventing the personal computer, creating the barcode, the ATM, lots of other things that have kind of worked our way through in our history, which brings us to today where we are well and truly in the tech industry. And I guess to then answer your second part of the question, why I joined IBM, not a very good story, probably, completely by accident. So to backtrack, I studied psychology at university. I actually thought I was going to be a psychologist when I grew up, because I loved working with people, as we've kind of touched on already. I got to the end of my degree and had a bit of what I like to call a quarter life crisis, when I decided that, it's not for me. Although I love learning about psychology, I love the learning, the interesting stuff about it, the academic side of it wasn't quite for me. And I had a bit of quarter life crisis, rethinking what I was going to do with my life, which I think a lot of students do when they finish their degree. What happens to me is that I actually went back to uni to study a master's in commerce and HR. because I thought that was a nice bridge. And I stumbled across an internship at IBM at the time. After you've been at uni for 4 or 5 years, thinking, oh my God, I've got no life experience, I've got no work experience, what am I going to do? And I just applied. The role was a little bit of HR, a little bit of finance, a bit of business operations, and I thought, great, this will do. It'll be something to put on my CV, so I've got something to go off. And then I never left.
No, I think I went along a pretty similar journey, right? Like my degree was commerce and engineering and nothing to do with technology at all. And it was a 5.5 year degree, and it was just a completely long degree to go, maybe I should be going out and getting experience or seeing what I wanted to do. And so I got that experience and then joined IBM, like in the tech company, going, I did not expect to be here, but here I am, and I'm still being here for almost 4 years now.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the kind of maybe misconceptions of working in IBM and the tech industry is that you need to have a tech background. You absolutely don't. And some of our best consultants and our best employees have come from really wide-reaching industries and degrees. So it's so helpful to kind of have that extra knowledge and that extra context to bring to, new solutions. And we can kind of train you up in the tech stuff. That's all the fun stuff that you can kind of learn on the job.
Yeah. And I think that was one of the things that attracted me towards IBM was because I didn't have that tech background, obviously, but they were so accepting of that. And they're like, no, like, that's even better. Like we kind of want that. It's a bit more different and it's innovative in that sense. So that was awesome. Going from your role, right? If you were to give someone some tips to join IBM, so someone's probably keen to join IBM, it's a tech company and they've heard what you had to say and they loved it so far. And they're like, okay, but what are some sort of tips to get into IBM? If you could give like a sort of brief summary.
Yeah, great question. And it's a lot of what I spend a lot of my day talking about to students. So I would say, firstly, what we're looking for particularly for grads and interns coming into the business is a passion for tech. So like we just said, you don't necessarily need to have a background. You don't need to have really hard or strong skills in coding or things like that. But an interest in the industry definitely helps. And I guess just as you were saying, we want that kind of attitude that you're kind of, if we throw something at you, you're willing to learn. If we, introduce you to this new piece of software, you're really happy to kind of give it a go and kind of get into the nitty gritty. That kind of enthusiasm and that passion is what we're looking for, and the interest in the industry itself. And like we were just saying, we can kind of teach you all the nitty gritty stuff when you get here. I would also say that some of the other skills that we kind of look for in the interview process and some things to think about, I guess, when you're, looking at jobs and kind of wanting to apply is, I guess, firstly, thinking about the types of skills that you might need for the role. For IBM, a lot of the time we're looking for really great communication skills. So a lot of our both grads and interns come into the business and they pretty much go straight onto client site and start working with clients and really getting into the nitty-gritty of it all. So such great skills to have is communication, whether it be pulling together presentations and being able to, write eloquently and kind of get your point across, or a lot of our grads will kind of be that conduit between the client and also the kind of maybe more experienced, more technical side of our business, and helping to kind of bridge those gaps and being able to absorb some of that maybe technical information and convey that to a client that maybe doesn't have that technical background too. So communication is hugely important. And I would also say, working within the tech industry generally, I think a growth mindset and some resilience is really important too. We work in such I guess, volatile industry in that things change really rapidly. Some blockchain may be the topic of the month, but then we switched over to, hybrid cloud or something completely different. So it's important for people coming into the business to be able to go, okay, I'm going to take this with an open mind. I'm going to go, full pelt on, this particular topic, but then, when the project ends or, this falls through, we're going to switch over to this, and that's totally okay. And we're just going to run with it. I think that kind of attitude is really helpful. And I guess then to add on to that, how you would show that through the application process is really, I guess, bringing your full self to the application. So I like to say that, when you're crafting your CV, don't discount anything. All of your experience is really, really valuable. So if you've done any volunteer experience, if you, even your kind of, part-time jobs at Macca's or Hungry Jack's, you may think that it's not relevant. It totally is. Communication skills, I was just talking about, conflict resolution, all those things that you gain out of the role. And also anything that you've done extra on the side of your degree. So if you've been a part of any hackathons, case competitions, if you are a part of any societies, all that shows that you have a real willingness to learn, you're really interested in the industry, you're willing to give it a go. So it's really important to kind of show that within the application process, so we can see your kind of full self when you come to us.
Yeah, it's spot on. And like, it's exactly what you said when I first joined, right? And then going into consulting, I think it's a really awesome way to get started, to be honest, as coming in as an internal grad, because you can figure out what you want to do, I guess, because you get thrown into all these different things. Everything is always different, right? Every project's different. You take on different roles, and like, you would need to be able to communicate that with the clients or just even internally with IBM. So it's also a great way to go, if I have no idea what I want to do in the future, why don't I just try this out? And you get to get all these different experiences in. And it's exactly what you said, like my conversations when I had with the manager at the time when I got hired, it was just free flowing. It was just easy. It didn't feel like an actual interview, right? It was just talking about like, what did I do throughout my university degree and what did I do in my spare time? And I think that, like you said, make it, even if you think it's minimal, it's something small, just put in your resume anyways, and it may stand out in the end.
Yeah, you never know. You might be talking to a manager that's run a hackathon or, has been part of the same university society that you have, and it just sparks that level of conversation and interest. And yeah, like I said, it shows your kind of full self. You're so much more than your degree or, what you do. So it's so important that you kind of showcase that so we can see it. And I guess for students maybe going through the grad application process now and kind of looking at companies, that's something else that you can kind of add to your decision bucket when you're, working out what company you want to work for is, how have your interactions been with the company? Do you feel like there's a bit of a rapport there? Do you feel like there's a good connection? Maybe it's generally a good indicator of what the rest of the culture is like. And you can use that to help you make your decision when it comes down to the grad application process.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I had the exact same sort of process when I was going for jobs. One of the biggest criteria for me was culture, right? So how well was it with my interactions with the people, right? So every time it was a good impression, I was like, oh, this is an awesome company to work for, even though I had like no idea about it, right? It was just from the interaction that I felt like this is going to be an amazing company to work for. And that was exactly how I felt, I guess, when I did the whole interview process with IBM. It didn't even feel like an interview. That's how great it was. And it almost felt so accepting. I feel like there may be misconceptions, and there probably are with your role specifically. And I know that a lot of it is like, okay, HR, you just write job descriptions and you're the one coming up with maybe the job descriptions, and it's not actually coming from like a manager or anything. So I know it can be quite generic sometimes, but are there those misconceptions out there that you could sort of clarify for us?
Yeah, sure. Probably a few misconceptions generally about HR. It's, I guess, like we were saying earlier, a lot of people think HR is just kind of, how can I put this nicely? Like the soft side of the business, you're just a people person. You just talk with people all day and that's all you do. You just be nice to people. Whereas in actual fact, there are so many facets to HR generally. So you could be in my space, which is kind of recruitment, talent acquisition, which is definitely being nice and having some great conversations, offering people jobs, but it's also having really tough conversations and telling people, actually, not quite this time. We don't have the role for you, or it's not quite a good fit. Then there's wider HR. You could be in compensation and benefits, and that's more on the analytical side and really kind of analyzing and reviewing people's salaries and kind of benchmarking against other companies. So quite an analytical take on HR. You could also be in the kind of conflict resolution, case management side, which is more difficult conversations, working with managers on different problems within the organization and how to kind of work through those. There's also the performance management side. There is, the culture side, which is for us at IBM, helping to bring us all back into the office and kind of feel more of a community again. So there's lots of different aspects to HR, and it can be leveraging lots of different skills, not just kind of people pleasing and being nice.
I definitely agree. I think I had that misconception coming in as well, but after meeting you and everyone else who's been in the HR department, right, it's so different. Like, it's not what people think it is when you're just applying and says, oh man, I hope this HR person is nice, but and that they only talk about nice conversations and it's always easy, but there are these tough conversations you actually have to have. Any other misconceptions you have about IBM in general? Because I know that when I joined IBM 3-4 years back, people had that misconception that we were just a computer company or a laptop company, and that was it. But obviously you gave a bit of a brief introduction to, we're hardware, we're software, and we're services now. So it's obviously transformed and changed over the past 111 years. Are there any other misconceptions that you think people will have, or that you've got common questions coming from either university students or others saying, hey, I thought IBM used to be this sort of company. Like, what's so different?
Yeah, absolutely. And we absolutely still get that, oh, don't you guys make laptops? Don't you make computers? I think generally because IBM is what we call a B2B company, so business to business, it means that we don't necessarily have a huge interaction or don't have, huge branding or advertising to the general public. What we do is we work with other companies. So we work with telecommunications companies or retail companies in the background to kind of help them succeed and do awesome things. So you may not necessarily see us, in bright lights around. So that kind of adds to the maybe the mystery or the misconceptions that we do get about IBM. I think maybe the kind of underlying thing is that, because we don't physically make products and sell them anymore, like the PC, it is that, that was the last memory that people had of IBM. So now when we kind of speak to people, they go, is IBM still relevant? What on earth do you do if you don't make computers anymore? And I think, Ben, you've probably already talked lots about awesome stuff that you've been working on, or things that you've gotten to experience as part of this series. But there's so much happening in the space. I think just this morning I read an article that IBM was helping some large advertising companies reduce bias in online advertising and really kind of change that kind of mindset of stereotypes in advertising, which is really cool. But there are so many other things that we are involved in and have our kind of fingers and thumbs in different pies, from kind of climate change to the COVID pandemic, all of those things IBM is kind of helping support in the background. So I guess maybe going back to some tips for students and people looking at entering IBM or the tech industries, do a little bit of research. Your kind of first idea of what a company does might not actually be what they currently do. And it's a really interesting exercise just to see how much impact some of these companies like IBM is having in the market.
Yeah, and exactly right. I had that misconception coming in, but even after just a week or two in joining IBM, it just disappeared, because IBM is actually huge. Like, we have so many touch points behind the scenes. Like, and it only just started to realize that once I started learning more and researching more about IBM, right? When you go to the supermarkets and, you're paying, right? And you actually see a small IBM brand logo on one of the receipt machines and stuff like that. Like, IBM, I feel like we almost lose that presence only because we don't sell those physical products. I mean, we do sell hardware stuff, but that's to businesses. But to the consumer, to the public, people don't really see our brand as much. But once you really understand what IBM does, a lot of it is actually behind the scenes, making everything sort of transition smoothly and having that sort of flow. So you're exactly right. Like, getting that research into actually understanding IBM is probably extremely critical when it comes to it, right? Again, even if you don't, right? Like, I've been in IBM for 3-4 years. I'm still learning about IBM. It's that big. Like, it's insane.
Absolutely. There's so much more to learn. And I think that's part of the appeal. I guess we've both kind of touched on it, that, coming into a company where there's so much to learn, there's so much new stuff to be able to experience, keeps it from getting boring. Right.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. I thought we almost ended up here, but do you have any sort of final remarks that you want to give to anyone who may be sitting on the fence and go, I don't really know if IBM is the right company for me? Do you have anything that's going to go, okay, just give it a go, or anything like that?
Oh, good question. I think maybe just to elaborate further on what we were just talking about, please do your research. it is, as we were talking about, it's so important to find what you're passionate about and what you're interested in. I think personally that IBM does kind of so much and works in so many different industries that you're bound to find something that you're passionate in, whether it's kind of, climate change and helping the environment, to kind of health sciences, to really, really, really interesting tech and creating solutions that will kind of reshape how we work and how we play and how we live our lives. But yeah, do a little bit of research, find what you're passionate about, and then go from there. I think that it can be really overwhelming looking at, all these different companies, all these different jobs, and yeah, it's absolutely overwhelming. But I think start from the basics. So what are you passionate about? What do you love to do? And you'll probably find a good connection somewhere. So good luck.
Thanks. That's really good advice. And just to echo what TJ was just saying, right? If you even have a slight interest in technology, I definitely think it's worth trying, right? Because it's like, we don't only just do technology, right? Like we help people with any sort of problems that they have, and we try to help them find a solution. I'm speaking consulting and services side, but when we speak about that aspect, and we have the technology to back that as well. No, look, TJ, thank you so much. And for anyone that's watching, I'm going to put TJ's details down below in the description so you can reach out to her directly. If not, make sure you guys like the video, comment down below if there's anything else you want to know about IBM as well. And again, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Thank you so much, TJ, for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me.